scapular. I think everybody, every Catholic, every non-Catholic listening, it may not be too bad if some Muslims and other people wore it. Because Muslims love Our Lady. Did you know that? They do. Because she's the mother to them of the great prophet. But they love Our Lady. And anybody that loves Our Lady, she's going to intercede for them. Simon Stock. Our Lady appeared to him and made the scapular of the Carmelite habit. She said, "This scapular shall be a sign, shall be to you and all Carmelites and all who have this privilege, that anyone who dies clothed in this shall not suffer eternal fire. And if wearing him when they die, they shall be saved." Now you say, how can you do that? God can do anything.
In my last video on the scapular, I talked a little bit about what the scapular means to me. In this follow-up video, I'll discuss a little bit more about what the scapular is, but perhaps more importantly, I'll discuss what the scapular isn't. As we discussed in the last video, the first scapulars were worn by members of religious orders. They wore two pieces of cloth connected at the shoulders. Nowadays, many lay people wear smaller scapulars made of woolen cloth. They may be decorated with pictures or religious emblems. The Church has approved several kinds. As I noted in the last video, I wear the brown scapular, which is the Carmelite scapular. The scapular has earned special significance. It's now considered a sacramental, and as such, it is a special aid to our holiness. Scapulars give us special help to live holier lives. So why do people wear the brown scapular? According to the Catholic Encyclopedia, all those who, out of true veneration and love of the Blessed Virgin, constantly wear the scapular in a spirit of fidelity and confiding faith, shall enjoy the special protection in the matter and crisis which most concerns them for time and eternity. Whoever, therefore, even though he be now a sinner, wears the badge of the Mother of God throughout his life as her faithful servant, not presumptuously relying on the scapular as a miraculous amulet, but trustfully confiding in the power and goodness of Mary, may securely hope that Mary will, through her power and motherly intercession, procure for him all the necessary graces for true conversion and for perseverance in good. This is a far cry from saying, whoever wears the scapular until death will be preserved from hell. The second privilege of the scapular is also known as the Sabbatine privilege, which involves a plenary indulgence for those enrolled in the scapular. I'm going to do another video on the Sabbatine privilege sometime in the future. In the meantime, please check out my video on indulgences, which is linked down below. The Catholic Encyclopedia continues, although it has now been sufficiently shown that this testimony concerning St. Simon Stock with the message that whoever wears the scapular until death will be preserved from hell cannot be supported by historical documents. Still, its general content remains a reliable, pious tradition. So the belief that the Blessed Mother told St. Simon Stock that just by wearing the scapular at the moment of death is not to be taken as historical fact. I'd like to devote the rest of this video as to why we can be absolutely certain that the Blessed Mother never gave St. Simon Stock that particular message. The Catholic Encyclopedia says that the vision with the purported message supposedly took place in the year 1251, but no one ever made any mention of it in writing until the year 1642. No one thought that was important enough to write down until 391 years later. 391 years is a long time. For instance, 391 years ago was the year 1628, just a little more than a decade after William Shakespeare was writing his plays. And if you've ever tried reading a Shakespeare play without reading the footnotes, you'll know that language changes considerably over time. Now, St. Simon Stock spoke and understood Middle English, a language that very few of us would understand today. So if the Blessed Mother really appeared to St. Simon Stock, she wouldn't have spoken in the exact same words that have been attributed to her. During that span of 391 years, both St. John of the Cross and St. Teresa of Avila wrote extensively and never suggested that the scapular could, by itself, save anyone from damnation. You would think that something that important, a brand new means of salvation, would have at least been mentioned in passing. More importantly, the Council of Trent was also held during that time. The council provides an elegant and extensive explanation as to how a man is justified, However, it doesn't mention that you can forget the Bible and everything else in church tradition just as long as you're wearing a scapular. What the Council of Trent does say is that no one who has arrived at the use of reason can be justified unless he is resolved to keep all of God's commandments. The belief that scapular will save anyone from damnation just because they happen to be wearing it when they die is contrary to the Council of Trent, Scripture, and Catholicism in general. The teaching authority of the Church has recommended wearing the scapular many times, but at no time whatsoever has the teaching authority of the Church suggested that if you die wearing the scapular, you won't go to hell. To have such faith that the scapular can do that would be misplaced faith. According to Father Dennis Doherty, it is the teaching of the Church that there is nothing that anyone can do here and now that will guarantee that he will die in the state of grace. If we live a good life now, we can prudently hope that we will die in the state of grace. And I'm not criticizing the devotion to the scapular. It's a good and profitable thing. What I'm criticizing is the un-Catholic belief that the scapular is like some sort of get-out-of-hell-free card. To many, perhaps most Catholics, it is just a lucky charm. I certainly don't want to judge anybody's soul, but it's worth mentioning that many mafia crime bosses and foot soldiers have died wearing the scapular. Now here's a news article from 1932 about an unnamed man who was killed in a brawl in the aftermath of a canned heat party. He was found dead wearing a scapular. Canned heat was the 1930s equivalent of heroin. There was a good chance that if you drank it, it would kill you, but desperate people drank it to get a cheap high. It's also worth mentioning that Benito Mussolini died wearing the scapular, and not as a part of a last-minute conversion. He wore it for most of his life. And he wore it not out of devotion to the Blessed Mother, but as a talisman or a lucky charm. He told people that it protected him from his enemies. As Father William Schaeffer wrote in the Advanced Register, a good Christian knows that true religion is contained in that revelation which closed with the last apostle, and which was confided to the Church. Nothing else necessary for our salvation can be revealed. We have everything if we want to make use of it. Would the Blessed Mother have waited 1,200 years to provide us with a brand new way of being justified? As St. John of the Cross wrote, in giving us his Son, his only word, for he possesses no other, he spoke everything to us at once in this sole word, and he has no more to say. Because what he spoke before the prophets in parts, he has now spoken all at once by giving us the all who is his Son. Any person questioning God or desiring some vision or revelation would be guilty not only of foolish behavior but also of offending him, by not fixing his eyes entirely upon Christ and by living with some desire for some other novelty. What we need for our salvation was revealed completely through the divine revelation of Scripture. We get many graces from wearing the scapular devoutly, but it is still a created thing. And to presume that it will protect us from the judgment of God is presumptuous. According to the Catholic Encyclopedia, presumption is here considered a vice, opposed to the theological virtue of hope. It may also be regarded as a product of pride. It may be defined as the condition of a soul which, because of a badly regulated reliance upon God's mercy and power, hopes for salvation without doing anything to deserve it, or for pardon for his sins without repenting of them. We are cautioned against this type of presumption in Scripture. With fear and trembling work out your salvation. The Challoner notes explain this verse. This is against the false faith and the presumptuous security of modern sectaries. To believe that the wearing of the scapular in and of itself will keep us from going to hell is a violation of the first commandment. It is placing confidence in a created thing where such confidence should be reserved for God alone. People who believe that sort of thing create an idol out of the scapular. The scapular is a sacramental where we receive many graces wearing it devoutly, but in and of itself it is just a created thing. According to St. John of the Cross, creature love is darkness, while God is light, so that from any human heart, one of the two cannot fail to drive the other out. So, are we offending Christ if we believe that the scapular by itself can save us from hell? Well, if we wear the scapular with faith and devotion, we will receive graces. And if we wear it like it's a lucky charm, we will get nothing in return and will likely offend God. Well, I hope you enjoyed this installment. We'll be back again in about a week or so with another one. In the meantime, please check out my Facebook page, which is linked down below. Every day I post additional content that you won't find on this YouTube channel. Please check out the Ascent of Mount Carmel group, which is also linked down below. It's a Facebook group devoted to the study of mystical theology. And please, pray for the church.
Crying mama, 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 you know I can't